right, what is going on, guys? We are back for step number 9. A lot of you have been waiting on this one, which is a simple step, but let's get right into it. And that's filling out the contract, right? Like, you're not going to be able to lock up a contract with a seller to buy their house unless you have the contract and know how to fill it out. So if you haven't yet, freecoldcallingscript.com. You will have a contract package that'll have a contract that you're going to do with the seller. It will have an assignment agreement for you to assign that contract over to the buyer. And I will also have a buyer contract in there as well if you want to double close. Okay, so you can get that there. It's 100% free. Name, phone number, email, boom, you have that. You have the overcoming objection script that comes with that. And then you also have the cold calling script that comes with that. Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to do a screen recording again of me filling out the contract and how I do that. All right, so and how I suggest you guys do that starting out. I will mention this. We use DocuSign, but that is a paid electronic signing platform software. Works extremely well. There's also HelloSign, there's Right Signature. We personally use DocuSign in our business. It's not very cheap, all right, but it does make getting contracts very efficient, okay? Upload the contract in there, drag and drop, signature here, signature there, boom, email it over to the seller. They sign it electronically. They don't have to print it out. They don't have to fax it back. They don't have to do anything crazy. If they don't have like Adobe or something where they can sign this thing online, that is really what you are trying to prevent, right? Is friction. Friction for the seller, making it any whatsoever, just any type of difficult, or adding any kind of nuance or something that could prevent the seller from signing that contract immediately. That's why we use it. I'm not an affiliate in any way. I just want to share that with you, but it is an additional cost if you want to use that. You don't have to. We do use it because we don't want any friction points. We want to send it to the seller like, hey, it's this easy. We'll send it to them straight while we're on the phone with them, have them pull it up, review it, and sign it right then and there. And that is the power of having something like that, a tool in your belt that does that kind of stuff, all right? But let's get right into it. So number 1, I'm just going to go over 4 points, right, really quick before we actually fill out the contract of the agreement, right, and what that looks like. And I also just want to mention here, as a disclaimer, I am not an attorney, cannot give you legal advice, right? I'm just going to show you what we do, our agreements. So again, like, even when I'm giving you these agreements and everything, I'm giving them to you for free. We're not held responsible for what happens under those agreements and what you do with them, because again, we are not attorneys, but I want to share them with you anyway, because that way you have them, right? So contingencies, what does that mean? So as an example, like we talked about in the last video on cold calling, right? One of the last ones on cold calling is a contingency would be like, hey, Mr. Seller, let's go ahead and make this agreement now. All right, let's get this thing signed. And then based on, but it's contingent, okay, upon us going out there and verifying the condition of the property, meaning that the contract would no longer be valid or would need to be modified, right? So it is contingent upon that happening if this doesn't happen, right? So I need you to keep that in mind, and we'll talk about down the road. There's a lot of different contingencies and ways you can get creative in the agreement. You can just add those in there. I'll show you the section where you can add contingencies if you want. But don't be afraid to, as you become more comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable in the beginning because you're still becoming familiar. You haven't done your first deal yet. But down the road a little bit, you can, when I say creating solutions for the sellers, thinking outside the box, this is where you could put those in there, right? These different contingencies that, you're giving the seller more value in some way, or, something that the seller is giving to you. But all that can be lined out there, and that is contingencies in the agreement. So inspection period, right? This is important because this is going to give you the time to A, verify the condition of the property, and then B, you also want to use this time to actually go out there and market and sell the property to a cash buyer. We typically do 7 days. We have a really strong buyers list and everything else, and we have, REI Automator to help find buyers. We've been doing this for quite a long time. We use 7 days. You can use more, and use that time, because what'll happen is this, right? Like, you don't want to go outside of that inspection period, because that is a contingency, by the way, that inspection period. So it'll say in that agreement that if we use 7 days as an example, then, you know, at any point within 7 days after you go out there and verify your repairs and do your estimates and you know, calculate all that stuff for your buyer, then guess what? Like within that 7 days, you can cancel that agreement anytime and you will be held harmless for it, right? So that's very important, because if you go outside of the inspection period, okay, then there is possibility for repercussions for you. You know, depending on the verbiage in the agreement that you're using and everything else. So keep that in mind. And that's why you also want to have the hold harmless in there. We'll talk about the earnest money deposit here in a second, but the hold harmless, and I have it in the agreement that you're getting from me. But that is basically saying that if there's a default under this agreement, any and all money, you know, as far as put in escrow or whatever as an earnest money deposit, would be retained by the seller as liquidated damages and fully settled, right? So that way they're not trying to come out. Not saying that they won't still try to come after you, you know what I mean? It's really never, I think we've had it happen to us one time in 10 years where a seller actually tried to like come after us, but we don't really back out of contracts, right? Like we close all our deals. So we've had times in the past where a buyer flaked or whatever, we had all our money into other properties, and you know, we've gotten to that kind of buying before, and it can happen. Don't let that scare you though, all right? Guys, like that's just, you know, you're gonna run into some issues here and there. You should be fine as long as you are doing the right things, taking the right steps, listening to the right people, okay? So earnest money deposit, a lot of people tell you $10, right, or whatever. I recommend actually doing at least 50 plus something. A lot of the sellers could bark at you over this, right? If you put $10 on there, you can do it, see what happens. At the end of the day, you're making a legally binding agreement. When you put down that earnest money, that will be held at the title company or your attorney's office, wherever you're closing the transaction at, and then that makes it real. Right, so that is it. If you don't have earnest money for consideration and you do a contract, and I'm not sure about every state, but I know here in Florida, like to bind that agreement and make it fully legal and enforceable, like there needs to be an earnest money deposit. And there's a spot on the contract where you can actually put that amount. Now, when it comes to the buyer side, you're gonna make them put down non-refundable, right? Yours will be refundable on the seller side between you and the seller, but on your buyer's side, all right, that deposit that they put down, because they're also going to put down one with you, and that'll be $2,000 to $5,000. All right, that they need to put down to lock up an assignment or to double close on a transaction with you, and that will not be refundable. So if they back out of the agreement, that means you will keep that money. All right, regardless, and then you can go find another buyer and hopefully still close that deal. But yeah, so the hold harmless is, you know, basically you forfeiting, right, your binder deposit, your earnest money deposit to the seller if the thing goes sideways, you don't find a buyer, whatever that is. So guys, those are just 4 key points I wanted to like hit with you really quick before we go into the screen recording. So now let's go into the screen recording and I'll show you what the contract looks like, how to fill it out, and we'll be back. We are here. This is the seller contract. I'm going to show you how to fill this thing out. But it's really, really simple and easy to do. All right, so, and it shows this right here, like the 1/1/1970 and all that other stuff. Some of this to earnest money deposit. So we have this contract built in our CRM in Podio. We have about $15,000, $20,000 or so in building out a custom CRM, which you don't need to worry about that right this second, but that's the reason some of this stuff is in there until we change the dates at like, you know, just auto sets at a certain date. But anyway, let's get in here. Let's go to the top. All right. And let's do this. So we're going to add text. So right here is going to be the mailing address. So seller mailing address. All right. Here is going to be you, right? So whatever your, you know, your entity, or if you're starting out and you don't have an entity, or your name. All right, that's going to go there. And then that's right here, okay, and or assigns their heirs, successors, administrators, and assigns as buyer whose mailing address is your address. All right, your address goes there. This is going to be the property that you're putting under contract. All right. All right, seller property. And I'm not trying to make all this like perfect, guys. Like, so the legal description. All right, so let me actually get out of here really quick and I'll show you. Let me see this right here. Pull this up. Then go into REI Automator. You can also do public records. I know, let me see. I'll show you how to do it both ways. But that way, I know a lot of you probably don't even know what that is if you're just starting out, so I want to show you what it is. All right, so I'm just going to pull a random address here. Make this bigger. Go in this right here. Property details. Let me see. There it is. All right, so right here, if you go under property details in REI Automator, copy that. That's my software in case you guys didn't know that. But here we go. The legal description, paste, boom. All right, legal description's in there. All right, cool. All right, so now this is going to be your sales price. How much you paying for it? You're paying $40,000 on here. All right, and this is how I would put it in. Boom. And you can, again, guys, I'm just trying to go through this. You can make it really nice and everything else. There's nothing in here in this one, in these sections right here that you would necessarily need to change. And again, guys, I just want to stress, like, I'm not an attorney, right? Like, I can't tell you, hey, this is going to protect you in every single type of way. All I can tell you is this is what we use in our business. So I just have to put that disclosure out there, right? As a disclaimer, that I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving you any kind of legal advice or anything else. I'm just trying to share with you guys what we do and how it works and, adding some value to you guys, all right? So here you go. This is an important one. So I talk about the contingencies, right? So our typical inspection period, we put 7 days. All right, so you can read right here, buyer shall have 7 business days. That's key, business days. All right, not just regular days. From acceptance to verify repair estimates and confirm budget, buyer retains the right to cancel this agreement within said inspection period. And we do not hold that back from them or try to do anything unethical or not tell the seller about that. We're very upfront with that. So when you're starting out, maybe you want to extend that out, especially when you're virtual, to give yourself a little bit more time. And as you start doing some deals, become comfortable with the process, you can start shrinking that and closing deals faster, but it can give you a buffer zone when you're starting out, all right? Now, acceptance. All right, so this is cool too with virtual. We use this, and then we use it even if we're going to appointments. But it's basically saying, look, if we don't both accept, me as the buyer, you as the seller, this agreement before this day, right, which is not going to be 1970. This is one of the spots that I was telling you about. So we're going to edit right here. Let's just go in here. All right. And then we can put in there, whatever, 0, 4, 10, 20. Boom, there you go. Changed it. All right. So this is cool because this is how you get it closed fast, right? So if you know that they're talking to a lot of other investors, they're really, really trying to like push you and the price going up and, you're having issues, even though you have the objection script, you know what you're saying, you're going to run into stuff like this, right? So this is a good way to like hard close. It's like, unfortunately, Mr. Seller, I understand, where you're at. I'm trying to help figure out what is going on and what's holding you back. I'm a willing and able buyer, and you can have this done. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm not going to get into the whole sales side of it because that's really in other videos, right? Now I want to draw this out, but the point being is this. All right, you can say, hey, if you don't sign this by tomorrow, it's not valid. Right. And what that is doing essentially is, you're putting a time crunch on them. Right. So You're pulling away. You're saying, look, I'm looking at a lot of properties right now. We speak to a lot of homeowners. We only have a certain amount of money that we can keep, putting out at any given time, right? And we're buying a lot of houses at the moment. So with that being said, I need to be able to mark this money, and I need to know by this day. And this is like the last resort, right? Like you're not doing this just straight out of the gate. This is like if you've went through, tried to box any objection, you've tried to solve their problem the best you possibly can. You've exhausted your resources and your knowledge on trying to get this deal closed. Then you start pulling into this, which is like a takeaway. All right. So deposit. We do $500 to $1,000. That's what we do. But, we've been doing this again for years and years. You do not need to do an earnest money deposit of $500. You could literally start with as little as $10. I will leave it up to you how much you want to put down, but I would suggest more of $50 to $100, right? It just seems a little bit more serious. So you put like $10 or $1 down. I mean, that's not very serious, but you can do that in a way to, here's a good way to get around the seller, hitting you about, oh, you're only putting down $100. Okay, so no, I can completely understand that. All we're doing is making sure that we at least have some money in escrow to bind the contract, but we plan on getting the rest of the money in there as soon as possible. So, our goal is to just get all the money in there right away. And usually when you tell them that will alleviate that issue and you won't have to worry about it anymore, and usually they'll accept that. So let's just say for the sake of this, you're going to do $50 or whatever, $50. All right, boom, $50. Now, here's where you're going to put your closing. All right, so we always do closing will take place on or before. Okay, so on or before. That way, if we can move the closing up, then we can do that, and that's actually in the agreement. So you would just go over here. We're going to close on 4/20/20. All right, there you go, wherever title company you use, right? So title company or attorney's office. Boom. All right, so other agreements. This is where you put those contingencies that I was talking about. But I'll just go over these really quick as well. Buyer agrees to purchase property in as-is condition. Buyer to pay all closing costs. Now remember, when you assign this agreement, that is going to transfer over to your cash buyer. So the cash buyer will actually be paying those closing costs, by the way. All right, just to reiterate that. In the event of a default, sole remedy shall be the earnest money deposit, meaning your $50. If you, for whatever reason, back out of this and you're outside of the inspection period, I'm not saying that they cannot still try to, go get an attorney or anything like that. Remember, I'm not giving you legal advice. But there is a clause in the agreement that says that sole remedy shall be the earnest money deposit, which is a good thing for you. Then I would go under here like this and put in the contingency, if you're doing this virtual, right? So that you need to see the property and everything like that. So you'd put that contingency in here. And that way, again, all you're doing is you're locking up that agreement, and then you're saying, hey, Mr. Seller, I have this inspection period. At the end of this inspection period, you are more than welcome. If we come back and try to get the price lowered or whatever, you can void this contract. And the same goes for us if it's not as expected, right, as it was explained to us as far as the condition. But hopefully, no matter what happens at that point, we can, work this agreement and keep this thing moving forward. So that's where you'd put it, is in other agreements down here. Then you come down, boom, you would just sign it, date it, and we use DocuSign for electronic signatures and sending these electronically. It's up to you. There's also HelloSign, and there's also Write Signature. But you could easily sign it in here as well and then send it email if you wanted to. But I don't suggest that, and I'll tell you why. Because speed and convenience, guys. Yes, it will cost a little bit more money to have DocuSign, right? But at the end of the day, if you have that, you make it so much more convenient for the seller. Okay, so you send it through DocuSign. Boom, you sign it, they sign it, it's all electronic. It takes literally a couple seconds.
to sign the agreement. And remember, if you're virtual, you're already going over this agreement with them over the phone anyway. So then at that moment, you can just go ahead and fill it out right with them there, send it off to them in DocuSign, keep them on the phone, and make sure that they're good with DocuSign, that they can get it signed, and then you get the contract executed before you get off the phone. All right, so guys, we're gonna go back to the video now, all right? The video.
All right, guys, we're back. I hope that was helpful. If you haven't already, make sure freecoldcallingscript.com so you can get a copy of that contract. And I don't want any of the stuff that we talked about in here, you know, legal-wise or whatever, to scare you guys. Look, people are doing this business every single day all over the country, guys. Like, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Just make sure that you're doing it the right way. You're listening to the right people that have been doing this, that have the experience. And again, guys, like 10 freaking years, like 1,000 deals. Like, I know what I'm talking about. So contingencies, inspection period, earnest money deposit, hold harmless. Don't get freaked out on any of the legal stuff. Just do me a favor with that. Don't let this hold you back. The odds of something happening are slim, right? As long as you're doing it right, the right way. And guys, it also, if you are in Illinois at this point, you actually need a real estate license. Well, I want to tell you that. You need a real estate license if you are in the state of Illinois to wholesale. Just keep that in mind. Now, you can virtually wholesale, you know, somewhere else. But to actually close transactions, stuff like that in Illinois, you need to have a real estate license. Just an FYI. But anyway, guys, look, if you're liking all this, you know, I'm trying to give you as much value as I possibly can, giving you straightforward, actionable steps that are going to get results, that are going to help you get deals, help you get going in this business. Please drop me a like. Make sure you subscribe, guys. Let me know in the comments what questions you have, anything you need help with. I am here for you. I want to see you be successful. And remember, as always, it's a lifestyle. Doing whatever it takes to do whatever you want. I love you. Peace.